All right, hello again, everyone. This is Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming. And what I've been working on has been another iteration of this BMI program. And what I've done is I've added generic data validation functions into here. Okay, and it wasn't an error, but I was repeating something, and I want to show you what it was, and then we're going to attempt to take these generic functions, put them into a class library, so we'll be able to use them both in our console app and in our GUI app. The problem that we had before, if you look at this, and I fixed it and then unfixed it for lack of better words, and that is, notice if I come in here and it says enter a height. I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to hit enter. Notice it's saying in here twice, height must be a valid int, height must be a valid int. Weight must be a valid int, weight must be a valid int. The reason that it was saying that is inside of this validation function, we were calling isInt32. Well, first we call that, and if the parsing didn't work, we return it must be a valid int. Then we made the same check with int within range. So it was returning the same message again. Well, I want to replace that message with just, if the parsing didn't work, just return nothing. So let's see how that changes things. So let's save all and let's run it again. So now when I put nothing in here, notice I get height must be a valid int, weight must be a valid int. All right, and if I run it again, and I put in numbers for each one that are out of range, I get height must be between 12 and 96, and weight must be between 1 and 777. So basically, I fixed that problem. But now what I'd like to do is I'd like to take what I'm working on here, and again, as I've been doing, I'm going to copy all of it. So from the internal class program all the way down through the bottom of the program. This isn't really the best way to do things, but it's how I'm going to do it. Okay, so I've copied it. Now, what is running right now is 4th iteration BMI console. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new project. It is going to be a console app.NET framework, and it's going to be called 5th iteration BMI console. All right, and I'm going to come down and everything after this internal class program, everything, I'm going to paste that in. This should work, and I should now have the same exact thing. Now it's giving me some problems here, so let's fix those problems. Again, we can remove all these, and we need to add our using statement, using static system.console. That should have removed all of the errors that are in here. Let's go back and let's grab that comment that we put in here at the top. Copy that. Now I should be able to close this. All right, and now I'm going to put that comment up at the top here. But remember, it is now the 5th iteration. All right, so we've done all this. And in this iteration of the BMI console app, we will attempt to put the generic data validation functions into a new class library. Ideally, we will be able to use these functions in the GUI version of this application as well. All right, So right now this should work. Let's double check. Make sure that it works. Again, if we put nothing in, we get our two must be a valid message. If we run it again, and we put in two things that are out of range, we get our wait night messages for the range. And if we put in something valid, all right, we get that. So everything is working right now. But what I'm going to attempt to do in this example is to create and use basically a class library. And what class libraries are, you can kind of look at it as almost being like if you've got a folder, let's say, that's a central location where you can put things that you want to be able to use by two or more applications. All right. When you use the class, when you store the class in a class library, you don't have to include the class in each application. Rather, you include a reference to the library. And when you modify the thing, you only have to modify it once, and it's immediately going to be available to all apps that use it. So to do this, we're going to develop a class library project. All right. So to start with, I'm going to come in and do this. I've got my, let's see, somewhere in here is the 5th. And there it is. So let's make sure that was set as our startup project. So I'm going to run it one more time to make sure it still works. It looks like it's fine. All right, so we've got that. But what I want to do is I want to make, not in this project, but I want to make a new project. So I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to add. And I'm going to add a new project. Now that new project is, if you look in here, I'm going to put in class library. All right. And you'll notice there is a class library here. There's one here. There's quite a few of them. But I think I'm going to choose the one, class library.net framework, right here. All right. And we can call this anything we want. All right. Again, we can call this thing anything that we want to call it. All right. And this is going to hold our validation stuff. So let's call it validation. We could call it validation library. Heck, we can call it anything we want. All right. But I'm going to put in validation right there and click create. And you'll notice that down now near the bottom, we've got validation. And what it has in it, what it gives us, is basically public class, class 1. Now we can rename this class and use it. We can get rid of this class and add a new one. We can do basically whatever we want. So to create this, all right, we basically said that we wanted a new project. All right. We selected the class library template. We clicked next and we gave it a name. So again, by default, what's in here is a single class named class 1. We can modify this in any way we want. We can delete it. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I don't really need this class 1. So I'm going to say delete. And you'll notice, boom, it's gone. All right. So what I want to do is I want to come into this project and I want to add a class. We've always been adding forms basically, but I want to add a class. Now don't let the concept of a class throw you. All right, we will be talking a lot more about object-oriented programming in the future. All right, so we had a validation library, and maybe I should even do this. Let's see if we can do this. This is a library, so can we rename this? What if we rename this from validation to validation library? All right, that should work just fine. Now let's come into the validation library and let's, whoops, not that. Don't want that. Sorry. Click the wrong button. So I want to come in here and I want to add a new class, and we'll just call this one validation. I think that's a little better way to do this. Okay, so there's our new validation class. Okay, it's in a namespace that's called validation, and the class, I don't like that. I don't know if I can change the namespace. There is a rename in here. Okay, so I'm going to rename the namespace to validation lib for library. Okay, all right, so we've got a new project called validation library with a namespace called validation lib and a class called validation. All right, okay, now in order to use this, we're going to have to compile it, but really there's nothing in here right now. So what I'm going to try to do in here is I'm going to try to go in and add those functions that we had before. And we'll see if it works. That's the one we want to add it to. So let's bring up our fourth iteration of the BMI console. All right, we're in here. And what I want to try to add in here, again, are things that I'm going to want to use in more than one place, such as is in 32, is within range, those two. Okay, I'm going to try to add those two things right now. So I'm going to copy those. I'm going to come back to my new thing in here. I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to add them. Now, don't worry, they're all, right now they're not showing. And the reason that they're not showing, of course, is because, why? It's because I'm not using them anyplace. So let's do this. I'm going to grab this. This is the one one of the ones I just added. And I'm going to come in here and paste that in. All right. So I've got the same thing in there twice. Why did I do that? Well, what if I wanted to also check if something is decimal or not? So I'm going to have an is decimal. All right. And this will be, that's the within range. So I'm going to do a decimal.try parse. Okay. It's going to return still a string. Must be a valid decimal. Okay. All right. Is there anything else I want to put in there? I don't know. Why don't we come up to the top? So right now, we're checking integer or not, we're checking decimal or not, and we're checking a range. What if, and we may never use this, I don't know, but what if I come in here? I'm going to, again, add this. So I'm going to copy that, come back up to the top, and put it in right at the top. All right, so we've got, again, we've got the is in 32. And that's, I want to check for input exists or not. We'll just change this to is there input. Okay. And let's see. I'm not going to even try to parse it. I'm going to say if value is equal to nothing, all right, that means there's no input. So I'll say must, Let's help us say cannot be empty. That way, if it turns out that we've got something in here, if we have something that we want to be able to check whether it exists or not, now I've got that. So what we put in here, again, I don't think I'm going to need any of these. And I won't even need my static because I'm not using that. So I've got an is there input to check to see if input exists or not. I've got is int32 to see if what the input was an integer or not. I've got is decimal to see if the input was decimal or not. And I've got a range check. So what I'm doing is I am building a class library. All right, let me do a file save all. And right now, we have to compile this. Let's see, there should be something in here. Somewhere in this standard toolbar, there should be a release option. Let's see. It's the comments. I like to do open clone. No. Start. Okay. Okay, so under debug there, we want to select the release option in here. Okay. Then we want to go to build solution. If this works, the class library should be compiled into a DLL or a dynamic link library file that should be stored in a folder for the project. So let's see what's in here right now. Let me close that. You can see what's in here right now. All right, so I've got release. I'm going to do a build. Now I'm going to click build solution. Let's see if this changes and we get a new folder over here. So build solution. And if I look in here, all right, this is the 5th iteration. There we go. So in here under bin and under release, all right, hopefully that's what we needed. Okay, we're going to see if we can use this now. All right, so in order to be able to use this, what we have to do, checking my time, and I'm only at 20 minutes, so we're fine. What we should be able to do then is to add a reference to the class library in our project. That's what we're going to try to do right now. So I'm going to go back to our 5th iteration. It's right here. Okay, that's this one right here. That's our, oops, let's see. That's it right here, our 5th iteration. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to add a reference to the class library. Okay. So I went to build dependencies. I don't think I want that. I think I want add. And in this add, I want to choose there's a reference here. Thought it was project reference, but I'm looking and I don't see it. So let's see if we can just choose reference. Now we want the DLL file. And hopefully there was one created. If there wasn't, I'm going to have to try to do this again. See, I've got a validation library, but that's not really what I want. Oh, I've done this before, but it's been a while. All right, let me pause for just a minute and get my stuff together. Okay, I've been playing with this for a while and went out and found some stuff on the internet, and I did a lot of what they said. I opened up Visual Studio, I did a file, new project, class library, I changed the name, I put in my methods. My methods should have been public, so I changed them to public, meaning they should be available to everybody. All right, so I'm hoping that if I come in here and in validation, I'm going to get rid of everything that's in here right now. This is the old stuff. So it's gone. All right, now I'm going to go back to my project. Notice again, I made this public, and now they're not all grayed out anymore. I made the is within range public. I made the is decimal public, the is in 32 public, and the is their input public. And I'm going to do a file, save all. All right, so all that stuff has been done. Now it says we should build the solution. If it's successful, we should see the validation.dll file in our bin debug for the project. Well, let's see if that does happen. So let's do a file, save all. And I'm not sure if this should be release or debug, but I'm going to leave it at release, and we'll try it both ways. So I'm going to do a build solution. It says down here that it succeeded, but we'll see now. Let's look in here. So in my validation and in my bin, I've got a release, but I think I want a debug in there, so I'm going to go back and change that to debug. So I think I got some bad information from what I had before from a different internet article. So I've removed everything in bin. Let me go back again to the project. let me reset this from release to debug and do a build solution. This again should build okay. Now when I come back here and I look inside of my validation and I go to bin, there's debug, and there is a DLL file, a dynamic link library file, which is what I think I'm going to need, and that's where I think I'm going to need it. So open Visual Studio, select File, New Project. We did all this. We did all this. Well, we've already got a project. So we want to add a reference by right-clicking on the project and choosing Add Reference. So let's see if we can get this to work. So the project we want to add it to is our 5th iteration. So File, Add, Reference. All right. I'm still not sure because I still don't see it in here. So we want to select the DLL file and add it to the project. Okay. Let's browse. See, we want this, but we don't want to add the library here. We want to add, we don't want this. So let's see if we can add it another way. Okay. See, there's an add. I'm looking to see if there's an add reference in here. Not just an add, but a regular add reference. Click on the project, then click on Add Reference. See, they're showing that here when you right mouse click on it, and I'm not seeing Add Reference. Of course, this might be an older article too. Not sure. See, it shows it being right there. I don't know if this will work. I want to try doing it another way. So I'm going to do a here, and I'm going to say add existing item. I'm going to see if I can add it that way. So I'm going to go down to validation, bin, debug, validation.dll. There it is. Okay, I have no idea if that's going to work or not. See, it should have been added under references, and it was not. There's references. See, there is an add reference right there, but they don't have any DLL. It doesn't let me do it that way. I want to move that up into here. Does not let me do it. So my guess is when I try putting a using in here and doing what they tell you to do in here, it's not going to work. Well, there is a using validation lib in here. Oops, of course I'm in the wrong one, that's why. I want to do it in here. So my guess is when I put a using in here and I try to put it in a V, it's not going to recognize anything. It does not. So I'm going to stop right here, see if I can figure it out, and give you that in the next lecture.